Namaskar, this is lecture number 8, dealing with salary, sections 15 to 17. Following incomes, which you see on the screen, would be chargeable to tax under the head salary. Before I discuss this slide, I would like to take you to the slide number 2, which deals with conditions for bringing salary to tax. As we have been discussing, there are 5 heads of income, and each head of income has its own criterion, or let me use a simpler term, conditions. Each head has its own conditions, typical conditions to bring an income to tax under the head, specific head. It is important to note that the heads 5 are specific, so also are the conditions with reference to those heads also specific. The conditions do not overlap. The conditions are peculiar, the conditions are typical to the head. I have done this earlier. Let me give you the necessities, the conditions for bringing an income to tax under the head salary. Not that you earn an income and then you are willing to offer it to tax under the head salary. There is no question of willingness under the head to offer income under a particular head. You have to satisfy the condition. You have to find out that the income which you have earned satisfies the specific tests, the specific conditions of which particular head. And accordingly, if an income that you have earned meets the conditions falling under the head salary, such an income would be brought to tax under the head salary, not otherwise. So the conditions, as you see, are existence of employer-employee relationship, master-servant relationship. So any payment which is received in accordance with the master-servant relationship, employer-employee nexus as it is known as, that income, that sum will be known as salary, and only such a sum can be brought to tax under the head salary, not otherwise. So the primary condition is employer-employee nexus, master-servant relationship. I should be working as an employee. I should be given instructions by my master. I am a servant, so I should have a master. I am an employee. I should have an employer who would give me directions, who would give me orders, whose orders I am obliged to follow. It is not that I can ignore his instructions and work according to my wishes, whims and fancies. No. I have to obey his orders, obey his instructions. And for which job I execute under his command, I execute under his instructions or guidance, I am paid salary, I am paid a sum. That is salary. I will give you my own typical case. Generally, I don't cite personal examples, but then I need to make you understand by way of an analogy. I am a teacher at this college. I am an employee. The college is my employer. The college, through the management and the principal, gives me instructions, gives me guidance, gives me conditions for employment. It tells me, Sharma, you have to be here at 7:15, TY BCom. 8 o'clock, SY BCom, example. You have to be here at 7:15. I cannot tell them, ki, madam, I will engage them sometime at around 11 or maybe in the evening. She will say, thank you very much, Sharma. I am obliged to follow her instructions, her directions. There I cannot dictate, I cannot even negotiate my terms with her, with the college. I am being told to do this, I am obliged to do this, otherwise thank you very much. She is what she will tell me. Compare this with my office activities. I am also into practice as a CA. There I have my clients. I render service to my clients. As I render service in the college, so do I also render service to my clients. There, with the clients, I am not an employee. As much as I am not an employee, so are also they not my employer. I can negotiate fees with my clients. I can negotiate the jobs which I will do for my client. I can also decide the time by which I will be doing giving the service. I have my clients coming to my office even at 10 p.m. and also at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. They will tell me, Sharma, these are all my activities. This is all that we are required to do. You are required to make accounts, file income tax return, make representations in the income tax appeals, file GST returns, file ROC returns also. I ordinarily tell them that I am not much interested in ROC work, registrar of company works. I will get it done through somebody or you find somebody. I am not inclined. So there I have the liberty. There we decide. We negotiate the fees. We negotiate the time. Client, professional, as against employer-employee. So they pay me fees as the college pays me a remuneration. My client also pay me a remuneration. That remuneration from the client certainly is not salary, for the reason that employer-employee relationship is absent. So when I get a remuneration from my client, that is known as fees, chargeable to tax under the head profits and gains of business or profession. Whereas the remuneration which I receive from the college, from my principal, from my management, is salary chargeable to tax under the head salary. Now please understand, bringing an income to tax under a particular head is very necessary, is important. You cannot bring fees as taxable under the head salary. Vice versa, you cannot also bring salary to tax under the head business income, professional fees. That will be wrong, because each has each head has its own set of deductions which are specific to the head. As we progress, we will see. You have to be very specific. The nature of income, the conditions which are attendant to the head have to be clearly seen, and then the income has to be brought to tax under that specific head to which it belongs, to which it can belong. So, coming to the first slide. Following incomes will be brought to tax under the head salary. Salary due from employer or former employer, whether paid or not. This is very important. Whether paid or not. Now you should realize कि paid or not. You may have a feeling, salary whether paid or not is chargeable. You can understand a case where salary is received by you, for example, and you are required to pay tax on salary. Section 15, which is the charging section, which brings charge of tax on the salary income, says that salary due from an employer, whether received or not, is chargeable. So now you may think कि I have a salary of rupees, let us say 50,000 per month to make things easy, and your company generally pays you salary, let us say on the 5th of the next month. Salary for the month of May, let us say, would be paid on 5th of June. Salary for the month of, supposing you have joined sometime in April, on April 1, 1st April 2019 you have joined. So you have worked from April 19 to March 20. April salary you have got on 5th of May salary on 5th of June salary 5th of July, and so on. So March salary you will get on 5th of April 2020. So you may say, in the year 1920 I have effectively got salary for 11 months only. Come to taxability of the salary. Section 15 says कि salary due from an employer, whether received, whether paid or not. So here you have been paid salary for 11 months, so you will be brought to tax. You will have no difficulty in paying tax on 11 months salary because you have received the salary in your bank account. You will be paying tax on that. But salary for the month of March 2020 has not been received by you till March 31st, 2020. You are receiving it, but sometime in April. So you may say, why should the salary be brought to tax? Salary of the month of March. Why should it be brought to tax in the month of March? The law thinks differently. The law says salary due, whether paid or not. Whether the company has paid you salary for the month of March, sometime in March, that is on 31st March or not, is not the issue for deciding taxability. Once it is due to you for the month of March, salary is due to you because you have worked for the month of March, all the days you have worked for the month of March, so you are eligible for salary, you are entitled to get salary. So taxability would ensue. You may receive the salary sometime in April. So for the month of March salary, you will be required to include that salary in the salary income of 2019-20. Though you may have received till 31st March 20 only 11 months salary. 11 into 50, 5,50,000, but you will be brought to tax on 6 lakh rupees being salary for the year 1920 due to you for the year 1920. But you need to also understand, you may have started thinking possibly कि salary for the month of March has been brought to tax in accounting year 1920 on due basis. March salary was due. You have paid tax on that March salary in 1920, though you may have received salary of March in April 20. So come to the next year now, April 20 to March 21. Again, you will not be brought to tax on that March 2020 salary. Assuming your salary has risen in April 20, your salary is 55,000 rupees. So you will pay a tax on 55,000 into 12. That is April 20 to March 21. Salary of the March 20, month of March 2020 will not be brought to tax once again on receipt basis in the year 2020-21. So it follows that salary once brought to tax on due basis cannot again be brought to tax on receipt basis. That's simple. That is the general rule. That is the principle of natural justice. Once you have been brought to tax, you will not be charged tax once again. There is no double taxation. On the same income, you will not be taxed doubly, once on receipt basis and then on, once on due basis and then on receipt basis. Only once you will be brought to tax. Here we have discussed the case that salary becomes taxable on due basis. Take another case, the exact reverse case. We do come across people or employees approaching the boss, the manager, the employer with some kind of a advance payment or advance salary. You may approach, you have started working from April 19, sometime in March 20, in mid of March 20, you request your boss that I need some money, so kindly give me advance salary. For the month of March, you approach him on 20th of March. So he tells you, okay, on supposing a salary is 50,000 rupees. He tells you, okay, I'll give you advance salary, or I will give you an advance against the salary. So you tell him you require 3 months advance, meaning salary for the month of March 20, April 20, assuming it is 50,000 only, April 20, May 20. So in effect, you have got in March on 20th March 2020 salary for 3 months, which are March 20, April 20 and May 20. Remember, May and April 2020 fall in the next accounting year, towards which you have collected advance in the month of March itself. So here the law sets in, section 15 sets in. It says once you receive salary, though it is not due, please understand, salary for the month of March will be due on 31st of March because you will work for the month of March. So it will be due to you for the month of March. But salary for the month of April and May 20 would not even be due to you because you haven't worked for April and May. You will work for April and May only during that time. So you have got an advance against the salary effectively for the month of April and May. So the government here is very clear. You have got your money, pay us. Simple. You have got your money, you pay tax on that money. You have got your salary in advance, pay tax on that salary which you have received in advance. Simple as that. So to summarize, you have worked for 12 months, April 19 to March 20, you will be liable to pay tax on 50,000 into 12, that is 6 lakh rupees. You have also got an advance towards salaries for the month of April and May. In March 20, you have got an advance. So April and May, 50,000 into 2, that is 1 lakh rupees. So 6 lakh plus 1 lakh, 7 lakh rupees will be the salary which you will be brought to tax for in the accounting year 1920, assessment year 2021. Again, the same thing follows. You will pay tax on 7 lakh rupees, 6 lakh salary of April 19 to March 20, 1 lakh salary of April and May 20. 7 lakh rupees will be brought to tax as salary for accounting year 1920, assessment year 2021. It obviously follows that once you have paid tax on salary on receipt basis, it will not be again brought to tax on due basis. Please remember, salary for the month of April and May 20 has been received in March 20. You have paid tax on that. So that will not be again brought to tax on due basis. Salary for April and May will be due at the end of April and at the end of May 2020. Taxability would ensue only once, not twice on the same amount. Salary includes arrears of salary also. This is important. We have section 89(1) relief, of course, which is not a part of your syllabus in context of salary arrears. Arrears of salary, we have in Parel area, we had mills earlier. Now the workers, the union, would negotiate with the management their wages. They would negotiate the salary, they would negotiate. And when they start negotiation, the negotiations may fructify, may bear fruits after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The matter may have reached the court also, and the court may decide the increase in the salary. Nevertheless, the court may decide after 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. But the court will say you pay them salary for the last 5 years. The increase in salary that has taken place is effective for the last 5 years. To make things easy, let us take a case where when let us say your father was working in a mill and he now receives in the accounting year 1920 arrears for the last 5 years, which end on 31st March 19. So he has got arrears of last 5 years, 18-19, 17-18, 16-17, 15-16 and 14-15 accounting years. So he has got arrears for each of these 5 years, say 1 lakh rupees each. 5 lakh rupees he gets arrears in the accounting year 1920. He gets arrears. So that arrears which he gets will be chargeable to tax in the year 1920. In the year 1920, his salary may be rupees 15 lakhs, for example, which is salary for the year 1920. So 1920 salary 15 lakhs plus arrears of the last 5 years 5 lakhs, 20 lakh rupees is what will be included as salary for 1920. So please understand, arrears are due to you once the court decides or once the management decides. You have received arrears for the last 5 years. It is not that the arrears were due in the last 5 years. No. Arrears became due only when it were sanctioned by the court or sanctioned by the management after negotiations. Please don't confuse arrears with salary due. Due means only when it is your entitlement. You may claim, but your entitlement has to be decided by the management, by the court. So once it is decided, agreed upon by either by the management or by the court, it becomes due to you. So arrears of 1 lakh rupees could not have been brought to tax in those 5 years earlier. Therefore, they are brought to tax now. Of course, 89(1) relief is there, which is not a part of your syllabus, so I cannot discuss that. I won't discuss that. So, salary includes arrears also. You will be charged, your father will be charged to tax on 15 salary for 1920 accounting year and 5 salary for the arrears period of the last 5 years. You will remember we have discussed an exception. As a partner in a partnership firm receiving salary is not chargeable to tax under the head salary. It is chargeable to tax under the head profits and gains of business or profession. Salary received by a partner from his partnership concern is not chargeable to tax under the head salary. It is chargeable to tax under the head business income. This is an exception to the rule. With this, I will stop here. The other part of the lecture 8 we will do little later. Thank you very much.